Hey everybody, wait, don't talk yet. Hey everybody, welcome to the community chat. Thank you for putting up with the first 10 minutes or so. Just to start it off on the right foot, if you check this out, so you see this graphic here? You can barely see it on the screen, but that says Curtis Childs, because that's my lower third, and we couldn't roll you into it. We didn't in time, so it's going to be both of us on screen.
I can fit under there.
But it's just going to be me, which I think is a good kind of like, hey, this is how the things stand. You know, like I'm the host of this show. This is Dr. Jonathan Rose, everyone, who's going to be joining us for this community chat today. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. We're calling it gratitude and forgiveness because we want to look back at our previous show on forgiveness, as well as in the United States of America, there was a holiday, and in some other countries there's a holiday called Thanksgiving that just happened recently, and it's supposed to be about gratitude, and I wanted to get some reflections. Is that playing a role in anybody's life? And I want to say, like, because we were being a couple minutes late, I was in the chat like saying, hey, this show's going to be late, and I was commenting about it, and I was doing a couple posts in a row, and it shut me down. It was like, you have been
That's right.
You have been commenting too much. Hey, wait, are you saying something to them? Because it's going to come out as them. So just say hyperliminal to the camera there.
Hyperliminal.
Because I'm going to get credit for you saying hello.
I know.
Everybody, sorry, this is a total waste of your time. What I want to give you is some content here. Hey, Carol. Hey, Cynthia. Hey, Jen. There's already been good conversation happening there. But I want to hit you with gratitude. And as always, this is the community chat, so you guys direct it however you want. We see your questions and your comments as they come up, and as they come up, we're happy to change course at any time to discuss something that's interesting. But I want to talk to you about gratitude. And I was thinking about natural versus spiritual gratitude. That when I think about what's gratitude supposed to be, you think, okay, well, I didn't get something, but I really should be happy that I have this, right? That I still have. I didn't get the big house, but I should be happy that my house doesn't leak, right? That's sort of what I think of gratitude as. But that's natural level, because when Swedenborg describes people who are in the stream of providence, he's not talking about, it's people in the stream of providence are, you know, like, well, that is good that I at least got something this good. He says whether or not they have mean circumstances or grandiose circumstances, they know that's the best thing spiritually. The real stuff I'm thankful for isn't like, well, I got a bigger house, because I don't know if that's actually good long term. The thing to be thankful for is like that God exists, that heaven is something that God is trying to pull us towards. Because all this fluctuation stuff, it just strikes me that he says, if you want to get in the stream of providence, you know, you're going to be happy regardless of life. So the natural gratitude, I'm just kind of halfway there, you know, if that makes sense.
Right. And he uses that wonderful word unruffled at some point.
Yeah,
that you're sort of unruffled, whether, you know, the wheel of fortune goes up or down for you or something.
Patty says staying humble. And I think that's a good way to put it. That's the essence of gratitude. It's like,
that's right.
That to be thankful for something is not like, well, at least I've got this, or I should have had this, but just like everything's a gift. Because the humility, and it might seem like, why shouldn't I want better for myself? But I think Swedenborg makes the point over and over again that humility is the thing that allows God in.
Yeah.
That's the protection from hell. That's a good deal for us. You know, this humility overall.
And I think you can only get up to that higher level with God's help, right? Like, of our own nature.
Yeah.
I don't think we get to that higher level of like, oh, even when it's bad, it's good. The whole thing is good. I'm learning lessons.
Right.
It's all moving in a positive direction. I can see, I was reading something the other day that had an interesting example along these lines, that I think you've talked about this before on the show, that people who win the lottery will then get miserable. It's often a catastrophe for them. And then people who get some terrible disease often say, you know, in retrospect, that was like the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of upside down from what you think.
To believe.
Right. And I think that actually comes from the Lord at its deepest level, that your angels sort of know, we're good here. You know, we're good. This is all right.
Yeah. And I want to say that Cynthia says gratitude is so huge and kind of undervalued. And then Carol is saying, God sharing his spiritual wisdom honors me beyond gratification words can express, but my heart longs for more, not in a greedy way, but that hunger for more of God.
That's right.
Well, and isn't that
the
same state that Swedenborg says God is in? That God is not satisfied. He says that God sees heaven not as it is, but as he wishes
desires
it to be. And I want to say thanks to Mary Rose. Mary Richards, very sorry. Thanks, Mary Richards, who made a donation via Super Chat to us, and we really appreciate your support. And we won't mess up your last name, even if I've got Dr. Jonathan Rose on the brain. So, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And Angel Shining says gratitude is everything. Learning this, forgiveness takes a while to get that down. Practice, practice, practice. So either we got forgiveness and gratitude sort of juxtaposed.
Yeah, and they are. I really agree with that comment. They're both difficult practices, and I think the forgiveness of the two, they're both really difficult.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty easy for the lower self to feel like, well, I got a raw deal, or somebody else got it better than I did, or whatever it is. This didn't turn out the way I expected, or
like us with our audio issues tonight.
That's right.
We got a couple.
Well, I was thinking about that because
we've got a couple.
We're having to work on the. Hey, be grateful. We have a show. We're
great
don't know how it's going to work.
That any part of it works. We got a couple of wonderful guests from our audience that we're trying to patch in, but the computer is resisting us. So hopefully we get that. But somebody said something cool. It was Shelley. Shelley Petty said, "Being in recovery, I know that a grateful alcoholic will not drink." That's good tool, because that can kind of give you the leverage.
It's the opposite of that bitterness, and that self-pity and stuff that can take people back out.
So Isaac says, how to switch from your physical consciousness to a more spiritual awareness in God? That's a good question. And could you give us a one-line answer to that?
The one-line answer would be, I have no idea. Yeah. No, I think that it's partly about there's putting in some time yourself. I think that's like a lot of things. Like, to me, just the way that if you're making a recipe, you put in a couple eggs, you put in this, you put in that, and everything. You throw it in the oven, and then a miracle comes back out that you actually had nothing to do with. Yeah. Or even in the Bible, it talks about that example of planting seeds out in a garden, and then you have no idea how they grow.
Shelley Petty said, question. I wasn't able to make amends to my sweet stepdad before he died. I wrote him a letter and shared it with a dear friend. Did he hear it in heaven?
I believe so. Like, I think people know the state of your heart and your mind, your thoughts, And so I think that stuff does penetrate and get through the veil, don't you?
I mean, it doesn't seem like it would serve any purpose for it to not to. From what I've seen, Swedenborg talks extensively about resolution on the other side with people who have both died. To use a negative example, if one of them harmed the other one in some way during life, he talks about all that coming out.
That gets worked out. That's right.
He talks about he talks about people who had been married in this world, getting to the core of their issues and either staying together or realizing it's time to move on. So it seems like there's all of this resolving. So why wouldn't there be something like that?
Right.
Yeah. So I would.
And I think it's so good for your own heart to get to that point. And the fact is that life is full of those kind of things where, I mean, there's several. I've had some friends who died. I was really trying to get a hold of them, and I just never got the number, and then they passed on. And life is full of those sort of we're just trying to get that other piece of it hooked up or something. And I do believe that you can do that in the heart, and that gets through, and it's good for both parties.
So appreciate you being willing to share that, Shelley. And that love is who we are, right? So that our love is life. Our life is love. How does Swedenborg say it? Yeah, our life is love. So that's coming out of your love. That's got to be. That's something that is visible in the spiritual world. It's what you care about. You know.
Right, and love. Thought brings presence, and love brings conjunction.
Yeah. Right.
And so, if there's a loving thought about somebody, that's all you need to have that person's presence in some way or another, whether you can tell or not.
That's right. That's right. So thanks again, Shelley. And John Childs, who sounds like a wonderful and handsome man, nice. Gave us $5. Thank you so much. Only 45,000 more to go to get Jonathan Rose's name on the screen here. So Matthew Bush says, Curtis Jonathan, someone once told me that you can't forgive someone who is not sorry for what they did. So I would say we got into that in the show, the latter half of our forgiveness episode, if you haven't checked that out already, because I'd say there's elements of that are true. I mean, it depends on how you're going to define it, but there's also this sense of forgiveness being this internal process. We set it up in the show, I think, pretty well.
Right. That's right. And that kind of complete sort of redefining of forgiveness as a protection from that thing, for yourself, the thing that you're trying to get away from. So protection from that anger or rage or whatever it might be, that you know, the bitterness that you feel. And so that you can obtain without the other parties, you know what I mean? They could be dead or unresponsive or whatever, and you can still go through that, I think. And
yes, so the way we laid it out is that the actual essence of life or of reality is forgiveness, because God, we think of forgiveness as, oh, I was mad at you, but now I'm not mad anymore. That's forgiveness. But God is never mad at anyone, so God is in this constant state of forgiveness.
That's right.
That I'm not holding a grudge.
It's
I'm not
pouring
going to
down
let
all
you.
The time.
So for us, what we're really trying to do is not engineer forgiveness on our own. We're trying to tap in to the divine, which is the source of our life. Anyway, tap into what's actually true. Yeah. When you understand everything for how it is, when you understand that human beings are these little things that are under assault from heaven and hell all the time, the evil we do comes from hell, the good from heaven, when you understand that it's really all providence leading things, you end up, that good is actually protected more than we realize, you end up in a state of forgiveness. So it's really about you and God working that out, because there's no necessary guarantee that people are going to forgive or change, but you can get to that state anyway.
There's some scripture, and there's some scripture that I read, so it might be in Deuteronomy somewhere, that the way it's filed in my head is not literally what it says, but it was that you use God as your revenge department. You know, if you're mad at somebody, you know, sort of farm your revenge out to God, because God will handle it in a way that's good for everybody. Yeah. You know, and then we don't need to take that on. We don't have to. You know what I mean? We can get to a better place about it. Absolutely. Quickly. Yeah. And a relationship, now when a relationship with two people, that's affected by the response you're getting from the other party. Well, this leads into, Patty Henderson said, forgiveness is so hard when you especially get hurt by someone you love. What is the best way to let go of unforgiveness? And I want to say that one problem I see with spiritually kind of stuff like we're doing here is people will sort of think, oh, you can just leapfrog the emotional creature nature of ourselves. They just learn this higher stuff about God, and then you're not going to feel hurt. But we're probably taking something big and complex and just calling it forgiveness like it's one thing. But I think there's one part of it that's getting to this state that we just described, of tapping into this divine reality of, hey, there's a bigger picture when we're looking back on it. But then there's this other side of, this like the feelings of hurt and sadness toward a person. And I think even if you've got the bigger stuff down, it doesn't evaporate. Like even Jesus Christ is feeling pain about the way people are, even though he forgives them, right? Right, and grief and so on. That's right. And I think part of what I've tried to use for this, and I find it a very hard practice, but what the New Testament suggests, that you pray for people, pray for those who persecute you and spitefully use you and all that kind of thing. I find that there's two practices in the New Testament that I find the hardest to follow. One is leaping for joy when you feel persecuted, and the other was praying for people who are persecuting you. And they're both extremely difficult. The best I get when I leap for joy is that I start to feel like an idiot jumping up and down, you know. But
can we
sometimes
can we roll a clip of that?
Yes, yes. You have B-roll. And then the other one is praying for someone, and that I've found, sometimes all I get in touch with like, I'm angry, they wrong me, it's like they've upset me or something. But as I hang in there with it, and mainly, how do I pray for somebody else? Well, I try to wish them good things. I wish them God's blessings or something like that, and also just sometimes just holding their face in my mind and sort of sending good energy or something like that.
Yeah.
And in time, that will, like, it's not overnight all the time.
Yeah.
But sometimes when I've been really, really angry or something, after a while of like repeating that on a kind of daily basis, it'll get to a good. That's how I've worked it, and eventually that'll have a good effect.
Right. So I it's a lot. It's a lot to try to do, but sometimes that's what you got to try to bridge that gap and kind of make this great sort of spiritual leap. And I wonder, like, I feel like we could answer this question forever, because is there true, like, actual feelings and then feelings that are just imaginary? Meaning, like, there's times when I've thought I was having some kind of beef with someone and I was all getting worked up in my mind, but then when I actually talked to them or something, there was nothing there.
Right.
But there's other times when you really are reacting to something that someone's actually done. So how much of it is just in our minds and this, what Swedenborg would say, the spirits around us messing with us, and when is it real?
Right.
But I can't, let's not even...
Because that's a really good point, that the spirits are in there too.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to egg this thing on. They're trying to get the other person mad at you. They're trying to get you mad at them. And sometimes they succeed, sometimes they fail.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I've gone to people to try to make amends, it turns they can't even remember what I'm talking about. Or, I've been carrying this thing for decades, and they don't know what I'm talking about. Or they feel sorry for something that they did that I've forgotten that they did, or whatever. But,
So I want to say, Angel Shining says, does it still count if you're still angry? I mean, at least you're trying. No, you fake it till you make it is totally legit.
Absolutely,
according to Swedenborg.
That's
so it's act precedes, willing follows.
That's right. I read that somewhere.
Quote. That's a Swedenborg
quote.
That's good. Right off the top of my head.
Act precedes. We got to get that on a T-shirt.
Yeah. So what it means is, do it. It's not as much about how you feel; it's about your actions and why you're doing them. So certainly doing that.
Over time, they'll start to siphon in the right feeling that's supposed to go with that action.
And then right before that, Bonfils Bhatti says, if Swedenborg says that our thoughts come from other spirits, which we were just talking about, evil, and maybe not even one-to-one, but there's an influence. Evil spirits if we like evil, and good if we like good. Then in the spiritual world, where do the demons get their evil thoughts from?
That's a great question.
Okay. Well,
I do have a thought.
What's the great answer?
Well, an answer, I don't know how great it is that Swedenborg says it must be great. Everything comes, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything originates in God.
Yeah.
But the receiving vessel, he gives the analogy of like the sunlight shining down on plants, that some plants will turn it into a sweet-smelling aroma, and other plants will, just look disgusting or smell disgusting as a result of the same thing. I mean, who's to judge? Well, no, but the receiving vessel. And so some of God's truth gets turned completely upside down, and the darker, the farther you are down in hell, you just turn that, because actually there's no actual creativity in hell. It's an interesting point to me, that they just take stuff that the Lord came up with, that there was a good version of it, and then they turn it upside down, turn it into a bad version. And
he actually says that there are like spirits, evil spirits get their thoughts from other evil spirits. It does go back in this chain.
There's a chain.
But who knows, like, who's at the back of that? Like, who's first flipping? He doesn't really describe that, does he?
No. In the analogy of heaven, it comes down from the Lord through the highest angels and down through the lower angels, through the world of spirits, and into our minds. But I don't know if it originates with the worst evil spirits and then comes up that way.
Yeah.
Right. He doesn't quite go into it in that degree of that I remember, but it makes some sense. But all of it, it's interesting to me that it would come down from God and then just be turned upside down. But I think there are chains. There's a reinforcement like one person's thought flows into another, and so on like that.
So somebody just said, Jula Saba says, "Are the spirits around us part of our spiritual community?" Scary thought. And I think that's not, because if you're saying there's a spiritual world is influencing your thoughts, but thoughts are obnoxious, right? I mean, pretty much everyone's are. So does that mean that's who we're with? Not quite, because no matter what community your spirit's in, you still have people from heaven and people from hell around you to balance your input.
Right. And the Swedenborg says that it's amazing how far, like, communication in the spiritual world is different than it is here. And so people can project a thought or language from a vast distance away. Swedenborg became aware of, like, where the thoughts and feelings were coming from.
Yeah.
And was able to track it back and tell them to stop it if he didn't like the thought or the feeling and so on. Yeah. And he was astonished by how far away, like, you may think they're with you because you're hearing that noise, you know, but they may be very far away from where you are and don't have anything to do with your community, with your homies. He says that after you die, I think Swedenborg uses that exact term in the Latin, you know.
Yeah, right.
Homines or something like that.
Homines Deus.
But I'm distracting myself now. But he says that when people come into the world of spirits, they're living amongst different kinds of people. They don't know who's who because they don't even know themselves. We don't know ourselves which angelic society we're attached with. That's pretty deep within us. Yeah. You know what I mean? You come into that over time. You don't necessarily know right away. And so I think the same thing's true while we're here, that we don't know. We hear this noise going on in our heads, but we don't know where the center is.
I think about it like in Pennsylvania, where we are, we're blessed with, like, really aggressive vines.
We
grow everywhere. Like if you have property,
wild porcelain berry,
you've got this like these vines that grow and they get really thick really fast. And when you're trying to remove them, there's this deep roots that are really tough to pull. And I think of our minds.
I think they're even stimulated by. You know what I mean? Like it spreads more when you try to yank it out.
Okay. So what I would think is, if God's gardening our mind and trying to take the bad stuff out, those roots could have been pulled. But it's all the hard work is done, but the branches are still tangled up in yours. Yeah, you don't know, even though the leaves are still as present as you don't realize that. No, it's just going to take a couple more pulls and you're free. So I wouldn't take the state of our thoughts as like the final indicator of how well our spirits are doing, because it could be that stuff is, even though it seems worse than ever, it's just ready to come out.
Evil spirits would like you to think that, no, you're surrounded by this. This is who you are, or something. But they don't actually even know. Yeah. They have bad information all the time.
Yeah. Hello, Ramona, Hillcrest Hospital ICU. Hope you guys are doing all right. Thank you so much for writing in. So people are asking, people are saying, if Kelicus, I'm really good at pronouncing these, Kelicus ORS, is if God is above evil and good, he knows them without being subject to them. And hey, somebody's talking about your Bible study.
That's
Matt Klein says, Jonathan Rose, you mentioned in your Bible study. So Jonathan does he has a side gig, spiritandlifebiblestudy.com, looking at the Bible through a Swedenborgian perspective. That God kind of tricks us to asking him for help. It sounds like he's essentially lying to us then through manipulation. How can I look at this correctly? So are you smearing the good character of God as you have a record of doing?
I just do, yeah. Yeah, I got very interested, as you may have seen in one of those Bible studies, with the image of Joseph in the Old Testament, who's meeting with his brothers. He loves his brothers, hasn't seen them for a long time. Yeah. And when they talk to him, instead of saying, "Oh, it's you guys," he's very gruff. He yells at them, calls them spies. Yeah. You know what I mean? And he puts their money back in their sacks and then calls them back. And he said, did you take my cup? And all, you know. It's strange, but that's a picture of how, you know, I think there's a certain degree of what makes it different from lying, to my mind, is that, like, a malicious kind of lying, like false witness or something, is because someone's trying to tear you down. The Lord's always trying to build you up, always trying to get you to a good place. And so if there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors in there, it's just because this will lead you into the next state where you can see more clearly what's going on and stuff like that. But
so there's probably some truth in present, like he's presenting something that's true to your state of mind or something, like there's truth connected to it in some mystical way.
And there's still freedom, because it's not just mere manipulation.
That's right.
Like making you, it's a stunt. The way Swedenborg describes the Lord and the angels, they leave us in such staggering freedom They just would never force an opinion on us, or they don't make us, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so even with what Joseph's doing with his brothers, they got their choice. They can go back, they can come back, they can do whatever, you know what I mean? So there's still, freedom is very, very important to the whole thing.
So hopefully that works, Matt. And Gabe says, can I watch these Bible studies with Dr. Rose? Yeah, it's what, Spirit and Life Bible Study?
Yes, spiritandlifebiblestudy.com has an archive of them. And then we also stream on Ustream, which is just the letter U, and then stream.tv/channel. Now I'm going to have to spell it. /Nunklicet Bible Study, NUNCLICET Bible Study.
Which is a Swedenborg quote.
That's right.
Latin.
And there's also, if you go to Spirit and Life Bible Study on Facebook, you can find us too.
Yeah. So Ramona, thinking of you and him, and hoping for the best, and we just again appreciate you sharing and being willing to be part of our community tonight. So got some questions about Spirit and Life Bible Study. I think we just covered those. Cynthia says freedom is hugely important, and
that's right.
Swedenborg says freedom is not just like an addition to consciousness. Freedom is consciousness.
Yeah, that's right.
You have to have it. Otherwise, it just seems obnoxious. Like, okay, why are you so hung up on the freedom thing, God? I would rather no freedom and no suffering. But that's not it. What we experience as consciousness, the foundation of that is freedom.
It reminds me of a very, to me, amusing story that Swedenborg tells about these people who are having a debate in the spiritual world, and they're all maintaining that there is no freedom.
Yeah,
we have no freedom. You know, I mean, you often hear this philosophically. There's no freedom. We're just like programmed. You know, twins separated at birth will do the same thing. You know, I mean? You'll marry someone with the same name and whatever. Use the same toothpaste. But Swedenborg describes this debate about lack of freedom, and the people who are participating in the debate are completely spontaneous, and they'll suddenly jump up and they run to the middle of the room and they express their opinion. And you can tell everybody's totally free about what they're, to express their opinion. So it's kind of ironic.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to our forgiveness topic, Sally Thomas says, how much good is there to simply turning forgiveness over to the Lord if we cannot? Not just harm done to us personally, but harm done to others. Yeah,
turning it over to the Lord is so, I really think that's the ultimate, that's the way,
And it seems like that's...
He knows how to do forgiveness, right?
That's something you would do with forgiveness and also with everything.
Everything.
That was Swedenborg's journey when he was having his journal of dreams and his spiritual awakening. Okay. He was going through the process of realizing that everything is really... The Lord is the mover and shaker. So if we can... So
every thought that came... like he could see that every... thought, every feeling, every, I was suddenly thinking of this.
Yeah.
Everything.
You're in partnership with God through everything. So turning things over to God, that's the order we were born for. And that might sound like, well, then what am I doing? But it's more complex. There's more freedom. There's more life in doing that. It's not a dumbed down existence. It's a ramped up existence. But that, just saying, so if you're asking, is it good to do that? Yeah, that's the way we can be doing that with everything. But forgiveness is one where it might seem like you're forced into it just because it's so obviously something that at times is undoable by our finite self.
And there were spirits. Swedenborg described his practice of just reflecting that everything's flowing in, and he just chooses the good and he refuses the evil. That's his whole spiritual practice in one sentence. And they would say, well, then you're like nothing. You're not even really alive, And he said, well, before I started this practice, I was less alive than I am now. Now I really know that I'm alive.
Yeah.
Because I watch all this flow in. And
That somehow he was finding something that felt more real and more human. Hey, T.S. Bilger, thank you so much. Wonderful topics tonight. Really appreciate it. We're glad you enjoy the topics, and thanks for giving us the chance to bring them to all of you. And, your support makes it happen. And I've got a question from Shelley. It says, what does Swedenborg say that God feels about walking away from people who keep hurting us because that is all we can do? Can we forgive them in our heart and not have anything to do with them? Yes. I think people sometimes fall in... There's been a strain in religious thought that acting lovingly is just like having no boundaries and just allow that you have to be there and be available and give people what they want all the time. Swedenborg stresses very much it's love and wisdom together. He talks about charity and the application of that through wisdom, so that you can actually be doing and we say this from time to time on this channel, you can be doing the most loving thing, turning someone in. That might be the best thing for them, or it might be the best thing for you or the situation. That it's about what's the intent. That it's not just exactly. Right. You could very easily be cutting somebody off if they're a danger to you or to others, or you're not making any progress because you realize I've got to be able to do good things in my life. This isn't serving you or me. There's plenty of reasons. Swedenborg does not say you can never put distance in. Just look at the human body and how it's not just one mush together. Everything's got to have its own membranes. You've got to separate out the harmful substances. This is the way life works, so it certainly would apply as well there.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's helpful to get input from other people that you feel are wise or that you trust about what you're doing, just so you're not sort of fooling yourself about whatever it is, one way or the other. Yeah. You know what I mean? But if you can get some good input, that's helpful. But it's certainly not off the menu. You know, I mean, that's very important. Yeah. Sometimes it's just some interactions are toxic and you just got to back away and give it some time or something, whatever. I don't know.
Unlost said, did Sweden Donnie ever bun a spliff? Did Swedenborg ever write about substances? I know he used caffeine, but has he ever talked about...
He was quite a fan of caffeine, and he had snuff, like a tobacco snuff.
So that's like, people used to just... That was like kind of like chew tobacco or something like that. Right. That was the way you do it back then.
Just a very mild thing. I think half of it was just because, frankly, the world smelled so bad at that point that if you could fix it here at your nose...
Shout out to the 18th century.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He had a book in his library about opium. Yeah. I don't know of any evidence that he ever took it himself. Yeah. He was interested in all sorts of medical things. Yeah. You know, there were early experiments with ether, anesthetics, things like that. You know, so I don't know why he had that book, but I don't know of any. He seemed like one of the first things that happened when he got sort of connected with the Lord in a different way was that he was told, "Eat not so much." Even the food thing needed to straighten out. Yeah. You know, and he would if he went out socially now, then he'd have a glass of wine or something like that. But I don't think he was like going hog wild with
so he's not, because
substances.
You do get some gurus and stuff advocating like you need to do altered states through drugs, but it doesn't sound like that was his MO. Yeah, at least in any recorded form.
He seemed pretty.
Hey, we want to say thanks to Shelly Petty, $5 donation. Thank you so much. He says, "Thank you for helping me deal with losing my mom and not to fear death." So those are like the two of the deepest human things, you know, the loss.
That's really great.
And then our own mortality.
That's good to hear.
The idea that Swedenborg's message can help you with those things is awesome, and it's why we're doing what we're doing. And thanks for that and helping us to do what we do. And I'm sorry about the loss of your mom. I mean, that's right. That's got to be hard at any time, any age, you know, to have that go on. So thanks, Shelley.
Thank you for sharing that.
John May says, sometimes I still have trouble understanding what Jesus meant by the unforgivable sin. So where does Jesus say that? There's a
thing about the sin against the Holy Spirit. Yeah. Right. He says, okay, against the Son of Man. I know Swedenborg's got a great explanation. I can't remember right now exactly what it is.
You stumped us. Because there's a very specific explanation.
I think the Holy Spirit sometimes in that context means the Word or divine truth or something, but so does the Son of Man, so that's a little confusing. He does say that the Lord says, "I judge no one," but the Word will be involved in judging, like it's just a subjective sort of divine truth or something like that. But I know Swedenborg's got a great explanation somewhere. Can we get back to you on that?
Well, so what I would say, so yeah, you get 12 points. No, I mean the like technical. No, I don't have. Like, you can't always just guess your way into those Swedenborg things, because he'll often have an explanation for something that is counterintuitive, even if you know your Swedenborg stuff well. Like you think it'd probably be this, but it actually is this. So I'm not going to. I've made it for myself enough times. I'm not doing it this time. Right. But what I would say is, if you're really wondering about it, comment it under this video, like after the live stream, or comment under any of our videos, because we try to get to those, and that's when we have time to look up our resources. Really, we should have somebody doing that right now, but we only got so many.
That's a good question, right there. People. That's a good one.
Yeah. Katrina says it's in Mark chapter 3.
Good.
Hey, synergistic RED, can humans in heaven have magic? The stuff that people... the way that the whole spiritual world works is almost like I don't want to say Harry Potter, but it's like magic.
Oh, it's made... Swedenborg says that there is so much magic of good kinds, magic of bad kinds in the world of spirits.
Yeah.
Like things that people scarcely know anything about in this world. There's just tons of it in the other world. People find these things, and because of the relationships between people and friends, this information spreads. So there's a lot of that. There's much more of that in the other world, both in a good way and a bad way. But the bad kind of magic, there's a protection from it, just like we were saying about forgiveness.
Yeah.
There's a protection that you can get from the Lord.
We reference books, movies that have magic in it. The magic exists in media, but why is there such a fascination with magic throughout human history? Is it because there's a spiritual world where it's really happening? And you know what? At the risk of sounding far out, Swedenborg does seem to indicate that people in this world are using something that he calls magic, right? I don't know if he calls it, but he talks about people who, through some kind of art, could get somebody to fall in love with them or do those kinds of things.
Right, and he says there was a lot of that in the ancient world.
Yeah.
And some of it was kind of reduced over time, and a lot of what had to happen because there was some bad stuff going on along those lines, that there was sort of a general forgetfulness about that. He says, particularly in Europe or whatever, that, even though there's been a lot of that kind of thing, but it's not at the level that it was at one time, I don't think. But and there's I think just the use of correspondences and things like that is a positive
that's
kind
the
of
root
side
of it.
to the
He says that this magical stuff that comes about happens because it's an abuse of correspondences. That somehow you're figuring out the order of how things work, and you're manipulating that, which people do on a physical level all the time. Just violence and just figuring out this is how the human body works.
Well, that's true.
I'm going to try to harm it using that. So
that's true.
Doing that within any system. Hey, so
that's right.
Gabe says, does Swedenborg talk about different laws of physics in heaven? And heaven, the spiritual world, heaven would have similar physics to the whole spiritual world. He says there's a spiritual world and a natural world. And the natural world is the world we live in, the physical world. And the physical world seems to be run by these constant laws.
Right.
He says the spiritual world is too, but it's a different set of laws.
Different set of laws.
For example, the role that gravity plays on everything in the physical world, that's what love does in the spiritual world. So, what do I mean by that?
Yeah, and so it affects, the perception of time, space, things like that.
Yeah.
They're serving a different thing. There still is physics. There still are laws or whatever, but they're obeying spiritual things. So that literally, if you were wearing a watch in the spiritual world, you're having a great time. It's spinning around. Yeah. You're bored. It's going so slow. So,
exactly.
You know what I mean? It's actually reflecting your inner state in that different way.
Right.
And he talks about there being a different light in the different communities of heaven, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Just like up here, if you go up into, northern Canada or something, it's just like the clouds look different. Or you go down to the islands, you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's just,
I know what
it looks different in different places. And so I don't know to what extent, or he doesn't talk about the laws of physics actually changing from one community to another in heaven, but he does say the light is different. The way that they perceive the divine and so on is different.
We want to say thanks to John May.
That's right.
For your donation, $12. Thank you so much for helping us do what we need to do. And the fact that you're still with us and did it now means you can tolerate this conversation pretty well, which we're amazed by.
That's good.
So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It's just great to see everybody talking about stuff and still interested. And Isaac says, how can you tell between revelation and your imagination, in the head? Which I feel like, good, you figure that out, let me know. Because even something like revelation, I'm getting a truth, but even down to just what's good thoughts and feelings and what's misleading and what is frivolous and what's from heaven. I feel like I'm trying to piece that together through Swedenborg as a framework, but it's really hard to know.
That's a long-standing pursuit. There was one time where I went out in the early morning to work out, and I was thinking about this exact point very intensely, And as I came up from working out, it was just, you could see there was a full moon, and there was also a street light, and they looked almost identical. They were the same size and shape in the sky. And it seemed to be saying to me, yes, it's difficult to tell, but there actually is a difference. One of them is 250,000 miles away.
Yeah.
You know, it is much faster and everything, and the light's a little bluer from it. And hang in there and just know that there is a difference and stuff. So that's been a long pursuit for me. And part of the philosophy that I came to after a while, and after being fooled sometimes, was just like, hey, you can fool me in the short run, turn me around, turn me upside down, whatever. But every time I can figure out which way is east, which way is toward the Lord, I'll keep going there. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'll just dust myself off and try. It's humbling, but just keep trying to go, because I'm foolable. But in the long run, I think it'll keep going in the right direction.
Well, it makes me think of our conversation around turning things over to God. That the only way that you can get close is the principles about God actually being the one doing things and leading things. If I take these directives that are kind of coming into me and bring it into a mindset of like, okay, you're telling me to do this. Well, really, it's God who's doing everything, and I'll try to do what's best for everyone. Sometimes that spooks it out of the bushes. Like, I can't survive in this environment. Certain things fall apart. Like if I get my underlying principles more set,
right?
But again, right? It's going to be that we don't lead ourselves. That we're always going to be confused, but God is overall navigating us through it.
Very quiet, gentle, sort of a lot of freedom in there. And you've done some great shows about just how to, like, there are certain sort of benchmarks if it's got to do with loving the wider community, or it's good for people,
right,
as opposed to just like, I would like this, but it's at somebody's expense.
Yeah.
There's certain sort of early warning signs that something's not quite right. If it's like, you have to do it right now, what I mean?
Right.
Offer's not good tomorrow, or something like that. Yeah, that's probably not coming from a good place, because the Lord seems to do this long, slow, it'll be better in 1,000 years than it is now type of thing. And so
this game of trying to figure out what's true and good and what's false and evil extends even into heaven.
That's right.
Because Swedenborg talks all the time, these deceitful spirits worm their way into a heavenly community, but they were discovered and cast out after something.
That's right.
So that's always the game that heaven and hell are
right.
trying to play with us, that hell is trying to masquerade as something. It's not. Heaven is trying to get everyone to see everything as it really is. So we're going to get better. We're going to be less blind, but we're never going to be able to see everything always. But I think we just learn to be less and less hurt by things, and things get softer,
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And the wisdom is the long game.
That's right. That's
long
right.
Game.
Speaking of the long game, this episode we're closing in on the end of it here. I can feel it. Maybe we do another question or two.
Okay.
But then we
Sounds good.
We hang up.
Sounds good.
So one preliminary says, are there behavioral correction centers in heaven for things that we might be struggling with?
I like that question. That's good.
And that is not something that Swedenborg covers extensively.
No, and I tend to think those would be more in the world of spirits than in heaven. It doesn't mean you couldn't still access them from heaven, because sometimes people drop out for a little while, go back, you know what I mean?
Right.
Go for a little retooling, go take it back to the shop for a checkup. Yeah. Your 100,000 year checkup, whether you need it or not, But but I have found, you and I have talked about that sometimes.
Sure.
Like, I love the idea that there's like great technologies there for figuring out what's going on with you, and here's what it is. Every time you have that thought, it jumps over to this, and then it gets into this self-pity or this other morass or something, and you just need to stop that right there.
Yeah.
This thought's fine, but just stop it right there, and then and then you practice and you try it some more. In fact, Swedenborg says that the schools, if you read Heaven and Hell, that section on the world of spirits, he talks about 3 stages that you go through: stage of externals, and then you come into what's internal in yourself. And then there's a school. There's schooling. There's education if you're going to heaven. And he says those schools are behavioral. He said it's not like academic study. I think it's behavioral, you know?
Interesting.
I think you're tweaking your behavior and seeing, I've got to learn this, get away from this habit. And a number of the stories, too, of people who can't shake, like they're drinkers and then they get a bottle stuck to their hand and stuff. You know, they're going through stuff about their habits and getting retooled on that basis. I think there's a lot of attention that goes into that in the other world. We get a lot of help with that stuff. And I'm really hoping, you know.
Well, it's got to be. Yeah, right, I'm going to rack up some bills there.
Yeah, that's right.
But because those kind of things pop up all over in near-death experiences.
That's right.
And other reported experiences. So I would think so. I would think that because if human consciousness is what people are thinking about in heaven, and how do we get people happy, how do we get people free and good, so you would think there's going to be expertise in how to improve that and how to fix it and how to heal it. That's going to be one of the primary focuses there.
That's right. And when I think about the time that Swedenborg lived in, there was like basically nothing like that, as far as I know, on the whole face of the earth.
Yeah.
And now there are so many modalities and different. Here's cognitive behavioral therapy. Here's this. Try this thing. This works. And here's something for trauma, where the buzzing on the wrists, or the two different eyes, or the mirror trick, or we're learning a lot of things about how to deal with human psychology.
Yeah.
Which is all I think it's leaking down in this world from the other world. You know?
And I think exactly leaking down. I'm glad you said that. That's how it progresses. It's not like the spiritual world is this sort of lame, static place, and here's where we advance and progress. We're just kind of picking up we're sort of riding the coattails of the spiritual world. That everything we learn here and do here and invent here is coming to us because the spark has already been set in the spiritual world.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And then somebody wakes up and thinks, oh wait, you could do this here or something.
That's right. So we're all part of the same team. The advances they make there help us. We advance here and hopefully help the next generation. So we're part of this big, great, exciting thing.
That's right.
Do you think we'll hit a more inspirational note to end it on? Or
I don't think we possibly could.
Should we do that? Great. All right. So thanks everybody so much for coming today to hang out and chat and do everything. And obviously, we couldn't do this without you. We probably could. I wonder if we could talk to an empty room. No, it wouldn't work.
It wouldn't be the same.
We're trusting that there are actually people on the other side of these comments. I don't think a bot could make all that
Stuart's
stuff up.
Typing all that, are you?
Right. All right. We'll check in with them. Seriously, thank you, everyone. Thanks for the contributions. Thanks for the comments and the questions and for your attention. Most of all, thank you for being interested in this stuff.
That's right.
Because we need people that are interested, because it makes it more validating to us, and it makes us be able to take this thing as you guys were talking here. I'm pointing down here. You can't see anything, but this is where I see your chat. Which I guess it's actually right there.
That's right.
You're talking about how Swedenborg's concepts are helping and healing. Just what Preliminal was saying. Are there centers to help us work it out? We want to try to do that. We want to try to create something that helps people work things out. It helps make life better for us and helps us get past things that we couldn't get past before. So we're just starting, but you're all helping us to build that, and that's what we're going to do going forward.
Let's do it.
So on that note, thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you next week. We got I have two things to say. First of all, vote on the art contest. Swedenborg Foundation is running a Swedenborgian art
cool
contest.
Stuff. I was looking at that today.
Cool. Submissions have already gotten in, so if you're first hearing about it, sorry, we'll get you on the next one. But go to Swedenborg.com and vote on that thing, so that so that you're participating in your democratic process. We want to know, because we want to continue to, as I said, we're trying to create this movement that does good things for people. Part of that is always got to have art with us, so help us doing that.
Speaking of which.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of which, the next show, next Monday, is going to be a Swedenborgian Life episode about art and spirit. That art is not just something that's kind of fun to fill empty spaces on walls, that there is a spiritual, heavenly power in art, and that Swedenborg saw it manifesting in all these different forms in the spiritual world. And just like we were saying, it comes here from there, that there's the essence of art on the other side. What is that like? We're in for a wonderful tour of all that.
That's going to be fun.
Next week. Hope to see all of you there. Thanks. This is Curtis.
I'm Jonathan.
We're signing off.